The Last of Us requires no introduction in 2022. It has been heaped with praise from the moment it first released for the PlayStation 3 almost 10 years ago. It's been remastered 2 times since then, yes, this is a remaster, and received a rather uncontroversial and totally unpolarizing sequel in 2020. When The Last of Us first hit the shelves in 2013, I initially expressed no interest in the game as I had been burnt out on the zombie apocalypse trope that had infested every form of medium I had in my life back then. But I kept hearing whispers about the game floating through my social circles, and lots of just give it a chances. Being the contrarian that I was back then, however, it took a few months for these requests to get through to my thick head. So I finally caved and decided to give the game a test run by watching my older brother play through a section of the story he was currently on, the Sam and Henry arc. I was fortunate enough to watch this section pretty much in its entirety, and I found myself completely invested in the game thanks in large part to its stellar voice acting, environment design, and character writing. It was at this point I made a vow to play the game once my brother was finished with his playthrough, and I ended up loving every second of it. I bought the remastered version for the PS4 and played it a few more times since as well. This is a game that had a significant impact on me in a way so few others have. I don't claim to have any new notable discoveries about the game, or any remarkable philosophical ideals that spawn from my experience. Instead, I want this video to be more of a personal display of appreciation for a work of art as captivating as this one. So, in honor of the re-release of the game with The Last of Us Part 1, I feel it's only necessary to make a video discussing this game that resonated with so many of us. A game that set a new standard for storytelling in modern AAA gaming. A game that is boundary-breaking, heart-wrenching, and refreshingly human. This is the bittersweet humanity of The Last of Us. There's an age-old expression that goes, "You never get a second chance to make a first impression." And the very first thing players see when turning on the game is this menu screen. I know I'm not alone when I say there's something oddly serene about this image. An old, broken window with tattered curtains and hints of foliage growing through the once barrier from the outside world. In the background you can hear the faint sound of music, an isolated guitar that sounds washed and faded, almost like a distant memory, like our brains trying to remember something of a life we once lived. The Last of Us takes us through what the end of human civilization would look like, and I couldn't imagine a better image that encapsulates that very theme. When humanity is gone, and all that is left of us are the remnants of a society we once built, there will be silence. There will be loneliness. A peaceful serenity. Mother Nature taking back what was naturally hers. But how did it come to this?
The number of confirmed deaths has passed 200. The governor has called a state of emergency.
There are hundreds and hundreds of bodies lining the streets.
Panic spread worldwide after a leaked report from the World Health Organization showed that the latest vaccination tests have failed.
With the bureaucrats out of power, we can finally take the necessary steps.
Los Angeles is now the latest city to be placed under martial law. All residents are required to report to their designated quarantine. Riots have continued for a third consecutive day, and winter rations are at an all-time low.
A group calling themselves the Fireflies have claimed responsibility for both attacks.
Their public charter calls for the return of all branches of government.
Demonstrations broke out following the execution of 6 more alleged Fireflies.
You can still rise with us. Remember, when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light. Believe in the Fireflies.
The Last of Us's prologue is meant to paint the picture for the man we will be following through the course of the game, Joel.
Tommy, listen to me. He is the contractor. He's the contractor, okay? I can't lose this job.
When the outbreak started, it was another lazy night for him and his daughter, Sarah. He got home from work late and she was up past her bedtime waiting to give him his birthday present. A watch. This watch holds a lot of symbolism in Joel's future and will become the root of his character, but we'll touch on that a little later in this video. Something I haven't seen expressed much but need to address is how eerie playing through this short prologue sequence of the game is, and how crazy different it feels now that we've all lived through a pandemic of our own. It's as though I can relate to these emotions the characters are feeling on a much deeper level. The fear, uncertainty, small ray of hope deep down, it's all very easy to relate to in a way that was just impossible when it was initially released. Obviously, COVID never turned people into walking corpses, but you get my point. The prologue to The Last of Us shows the player how quickly society crumbled at the start of the outbreak, and how quickly the military presence turned everyone against each other. Joel, his brother Tommy, and Sarah attempt their escape from the city in the hopes of finding refuge, but after running into a soldier with strict orders to shoot any civilians on sight, Sarah is killed in Joel's arms, and in that moment, Joel learns what it will take to survive in a world with the cordyceps virus.
Sarah? Baby?
The game picks up after the prologue 20 years later, and we're greeted with a very different Joel than the man we saw at the beginning of the outbreak. This version of Joel is a hardened, cold, and ruthless killer who will do anything in his power to survive. Any sense of a moral compass has been totally discarded by this point, and all he relies on are his survival instincts and living to see another day. One thing that has always fascinated me with main characters who have slightly questionable moral compasses are how the audience continues to root for them through the course of the story. An example I can say I'm guilty of is Walter White in Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad was directed in a way that makes it hard to root against Walt, as we see his circumstances through his perspective and can find reasons to justify his actions as they increasingly get worse and worse as the show goes on. Joel, to me, is another fantastic example of this style of character, and a lot of the same tricks were used to make us sympathetic and forgiving to his situation. But The Last of Us has an advantage over other mediums in making the player feel intertwined with the main character in the sense that it's a video game. The actions the players take as Joel make them feel directly responsible for everything that Joel does, and this in turn makes it even easier to be sympathetic towards his character. An early example of this in The Last of Us is in the very first mission Joel goes on with Tess to hunt down a man named Robert and recover a stolen weapons cache. Tess and Joel find themselves in the ruins of an old building where the cordyceps spores are present in the air. Gas masks in hand, the two make their way inside and find a man lying on the ground underneath debris from the building. His gas mask is broken and he's pleading with Joel to not leave him to turn. In these moments, the player is presented with a choice to shoot and kill the man, or to walk away and leave him. The game indicates that you're intended to shoot and kill the man, complete with the button prompts for aiming and firing appearing on the screen, but it doesn't force you to. This is the earliest example of the players consciously deciding to kill as Joel, and I'm sure a percentage of you watching this video forgot about this little interaction, but it remains a prime example of the game psychologically desensitizing you to Joel's actions, instead justifying them as something that needed to be done, whether it be for survival or otherwise. Getting us back on track though, players will go through a shootout stealth sequence before reaching Robert, and he reveals to Joel and Tess that he sold their weapons to the Fireflies, a militia faction that formed after the outbreak who aims to restore government order and opposes the oppressive military reign. In this moment, Marlene, the leader of the Fireflies, appears to Joel and Tess and offers them a deal to smuggle a young girl named Ellie out of the city in exchange for the weapons. Smuggling being what Joel and Tess do best, they agree. Tess goes with Marlene to verify the weapons are real, and Joel takes Ellie to the North Tunnel to wait for Tess to arrive. This is the first glimpse players will get into the Joel and Ellie relationship, which is the foundation of The Last of Us. This game's themes are about finding something to fight for in the most perilous of circumstances, and for Joel, about overcoming the daughter-sized hole in his heart, and the key to filling that hole that's been present for the past 20 years, this girl.
What are you doing?
Killing time.
Well, what am I supposed to do?
I am sure you will figure that out.
Your watch is broken.
That one line encapsulates Joel's entire character in this very moment. The thing that has driven Joel for the past 20 years is losing his daughter Sarah. I can't claim to know how it feels to have a child and feel the unconditional love that a parent would have for them. I can't claim to know what it's like to lose a child. But when I think about this one scene, it becomes clearer to me than it was before. Joel feels like he's been trapped in time ever since the cordyceps virus began. Living without a purpose or anything to wake up for, he's withdrawn his humanity and operates solely on basic survival instinct. His heartstrings haven't been tugged in 2 decades, and Ellie is the one person in this world that can be a threat to the walls Joel has built around himself. Ellie's character is a stark contrast to Joel's. Joel has seen the end of the world take shape right before his very eyes, and he's a changed man because of the loss that came with it. Ellie, on the other hand, grew up in this tattered world. She knows nothing firsthand about the life we currently live, or all the things she never got to experience because of the outbreak. All she knows is the now, and all the horrible things that come with the world of The Last of Us. Ellie is a child seeking security. She's afraid to care for the people around her, as she's lost so much at a young age. And to her, Joel will come to be a surrogate father as their relationship blossoms over the course of the game. And have I mentioned how incredible the voice acting is?
Look how dark it is. Can't be any worse out there. Can it?
Eventually, the three escape the quarantine zone but are intercepted by two soldiers sent out to round up stragglers. They manage to kill the soldiers, but it's revealed that Ellie is actually immune to the cordyceps virus.
Jesus Christ. Marlene set us up? Why the hell are we smuggling an infected girl?
I'm not infected.
No? Just lying?
I can explain.
You better explain fast.
Look at this.
I don't care how you got infected.
It's 3 weeks old.
No, everyone turns within 2 days, so you stop bullshitting.
It's 3 weeks. I swear.
Before anyone has time to think, backup arrives for the two dead soldiers laying on the ground, and it's time to run. Before the players can reach the capital, however, they must traverse through more busted down buildings and fight off hordes of infected. And I think this is a good time to interject and talk about the gameplay of The Last of Us. The Last of Us's gameplay consists of 3 parts: fighting infected, fighting humans, and scavenging for supplies in safe areas where neither are present. The scenery in The Last of Us makes exploration engaging, and it's clear to me the level of passion that was put into this reimagining of the United States in a post-apocalyptic world. It's also cool to see a city I'm familiar with in the game: Pittsburgh. Walking through this section of the game, I can almost make out exactly what part of the city they were going for, and it's awesome to see in a video game as high budgeted as this one. The combat in The Last of Us is good, but was absolutely obliterated by The Last of Us 2's systems. My biggest nitpick with The Last of Us is how the companion characters will just run around and make an ass of themselves in the stealth sections of the game. It's really the only thing that's capable of breaking my immersion in the entire experience. Players can find melee weapons to whack enemies with when they're running low on ammo, and the consumables like Molotovs, nail bombs, and smoke bombs are really handy in a pinch. The Last of Us features a listen mode on every difficulty but grounded, which assists players in keeping tabs on multiple enemies at once. And a further advantage to playing on lower difficulties is that there are more supplies present through the map for the player to pick up and craft more consumables with. Of all the things in the game, some of my favorite memories were trying to crack the safes found throughout the map, which will reward players with a bundle of gears for upgrading weapons and supplies to make more health kits. Additionally, the characters in the game have some hidden interactions that you could easily miss if you don't find yourself looking around in areas where there are no enemies. So definitely take your time to explore the various locales when you get the chance. But okay, back to the story. As I established earlier, the core of The Last of Us is the relationship between Joel and Ellie, as these two characters need each other far more than they could possibly know when they first meet. The Last of Us really takes shape when Joel, Ellie, and Tess arrive at the Capitol building and see that the Fireflies they were delivering Ellie to have been killed. And unfortunately for Joel, the Fireflies aren't the only people that are going to die today.
Our luck had to run out sooner or later.
You going on?
No, don't! Don't touch me.
Holy shit. She's infected.
Joel,
Let me see.
I didn't mean for this.
Show it to me. Oh, Christ.
Oops, right?
Joel at this point in the story is flooded with his survivor's guilt and trauma from losing so many people he considered himself close to. It's this very survivor's guilt that pushed him forward at this point in his life. He feels as though he owes it to the people he's lost to continue fighting until the very end. A man with nothing to lose, and he has no desire to find something to lose. Joel and Ellie make their way to a town where Joel describes House as someone who owes him a favor. The plan is to get a car and make their way further west out to find the Firefly lab so he can deliver Ellie to them as promised. It's in this town we meet Bill.
Ellie. Hey, what are you... Joel?
Bill!
What are you doing?
Bill!
Let me go.
Turn around and get on your knees.
Just calm down a second.
Turn around
All right.
and get on your knees.
And a quick side note, but this scene from the game is up on YouTube with the mocap equipment on the voice actors, and it's a really cool watch to see how these scenes were directed for the purposes of later animation.
Oh, goddamn town's booby-trapped. Best stay right on my ass.
Can't miss it.
Knock it off.
It's also this scene that really made me want to be a voice actor, so hey, maybe someday. What I really want to highlight from this portion of the game is this is the beginning of a sort of transition for Joel. This is a moment in the game where the purpose of taking Ellie to the Firefly lab becomes muddled in a sea of I don't know whys. Also, for someone who grew up in an isolated quarantine zone their entire lives, I gotta agree with Bill on this one.
Just keep your foot on the clutch, and when we get to...
I know how to pop a clutch.
How the hell did... You know what? I don't care. Just don't fuck it up.
Joel expresses anger at Ellie when a situation turns threatening instead of being forward with their growing bond. Ellie becomes frustrated with Joel in turn because she thinks his only motivation to get her to the Fireflies is to get rid of her, and finally be free of the burden of traveling with a kid across the country. This moment would eventually lead to a boiling resolution in a later sequence, but one of the key traits about Ellie's character that breaks through Joel's cold exterior is a rebellious tendency to see through the bullshit of strict survivalism. For example, in this scene, Joel and Ellie have met Sam and Henry, two survivors whose relationship eerily parallels theirs. While trying to cross through the city of Pittsburgh and avoid an armored truck, they all find themselves in a toy store when...
Sam, what are you doing? Nothing. Get rid of it.
My backpack is practically empty.
What's the rule about taking stuff?
It weighs like nothing.
The rule. What is it?
We only take what we have to.
That's right. Now come on.
This is probably something that's common knowledge at this point, but I have to point it out anyway. Ellie walks over to the toy after everyone leaves and will actually pick it up and put it in her bag for Sam, as long as she thinks you aren't looking. That's one of the coolest details in the game, and one that I missed on my first few playthroughs. It's really the little details like this scattered throughout the journey and optional conversations between the characters that help further immerse you in the story better than any movie could.
So, how old are you?
Me? 14. How old are you?
The same?
Oh, you're 14, huh?
I'm close.
All right.
I am.
I want to fast forward a little to when Joel and Ellie find Tommy. Now, it's at this point in the story Joel really begins to realize his bond with Ellie, and it's this very bond that's forming that Joel tries to push away one last time. Joel feels as though Ellie would be safer with Tommy escorting her the rest of the way to the Firefly lab, and Ellie's objections to this idea mean little to Joel, as the real reason he tries to pass her off to Tommy is that he has realized he couldn't bear to live if anything happened to Ellie on his watch. With tensions high between the two, Ellie runs off on her own away from the group, and I have to say I don't know what's scarier. The idea that Ellie could have been killed, or this sign showing the federal minimum wage. When Joel finally reaches Ellie again, the two get brutally honest with each other, and one of the most memorable moments in the entire game.
Do you even realize what your life means? Huh? Running off like that, putting yourself at risk, it's pretty goddamn stupid.
Well, I guess we're both disappointed with each other then.
What do you want from me?
Admit that you wanted to get rid of me the whole time.
Tommy knows this area.
Oh,
better
fuck
than...
that.
Well, I'm sorry. I trust him better than I trust myself.
Stop with the bullshit. What are you so afraid of? That I'm gonna end up like Sam? I can't get infected. I can take care of myself.
How many close calls have we had?
Well, we seem to be doing all right so far.
And now you'll be doing even better with Tommy.
Not her, you know.
What?
Maria told me about Sarah.
Ellie?
And...
You are treading on some mighty thin ice here.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel. But I have lost people too.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
This is what love looks like to Joel. And that love is even furthered in the penultimate arc of this story. This section of the story takes a turn in the sense that you will play as Ellie for most of it. Joel, gravely wounded from being stabbed in the previous arc, is in dire need of medicine for his wounds, and Ellie makes it her mission to find some. Having to stealth your way through a cannibalistic tribe of men all by yourself, you end up encountering David, who is the head of this cannibalistic group of men. The battle with David in this burning restaurant as Ellie is by and large the most tense feeling this game invokes in me. You feel powerless against David, and he feels rightfully menacing. As their fight progresses, the player will reclaim control as Joel, and you will have to retrace your steps you took as Ellie. When you finally reach the burning restaurant, you witness Ellie murdering David with a machete, and you comfort her before you head off. Joel being the one person in this world that can bring Ellie back down to Earth after an encounter as close to death as that one.
It's me! It's me! It's me! Look! Look! It's me.
He tried to...
Oh, baby girl.
Ellie! Ellie!
Did you hear me?
All of the story building and character progression is leading to this point. When Joel and Ellie finally reach the Firefly hospital, Ellie almost drowns trying to save Joel, and the Fireflies knock Joel out and take Ellie themselves. Joel awakens to Marlene and the Fireflies in a hospital room. And the real reason the Fireflies wanted Ellie comes to light. The Fireflies wanted to harvest Ellie's brain for research on a potential cure and vaccine for the cordyceps virus. However, this procedure would prove fatal to Ellie in the process. It is in this moment Joel makes a decision, and this section of the game drew criticism for some because the game does not leave the player with a choice in this matter, but I find it brilliant that the choice was made for the player in this section. Joel decides to go on a killing spree, and to save Ellie from having her brain harvested, damning humanity's one chance to put an end to this virus in the process. Flash back to the beginning of the game when you're presented with the freedom of choice in deciding to kill or leave the man behind in the broken down building as Joel and Tess. I love that in these final moments the choice is stripped away from the player. The game reminds you that you're playing Joel and Ellie's story. You're not role-playing as a character in an RPG, but are instead a passenger peering into these two characters' lives. This story was never ours, it was Joel's and Ellie's. I think it's important to point out here that the purpose of Joel choosing to save Ellie over mankind does not make him a villain in this story. Instead, it renders him as very much human. In an interview with film director Dan Trachtenberg at DICE Summit 2018, Last of Us creator Neil Druckmann revealed that the whole concept of The Last of Us is to try to replicate the mechanics and storytelling of a bond of father and daughter. Joel and Ellie have transformed from being nobodies to each other to having that unbreakable father-daughter bond. The entire game has led up to this point, and the linearity of the story in The Last of Us is not a negative in my eyes. It does not render the game as more of a movie because the cutscenes and story are predetermined. Instead, it makes the experience even more worthwhile. Standing here in the surgery room, staring the man in the eye who was about to kill Ellie left me conflicted as a player. This one moment of hesitation made me question if what you're doing is really the right thing to do. But those thoughts quickly fade as you ask yourself this question. Even if harvesting Ellie's brain would 100% guarantee that a cure could be made, and humanity could be saved, is it worth it? And to Joel, that question has already been answered. The love Joel has for Ellie outweighs any chance of finding a cure for humanity. The risk is not worth it when it comes to someone you love. And if this were me in Joel's shoes, I can't say that I would have done anything differently. What's the point in saving the world if you lose the one thing that makes you want to continue in this world as a result? Saving Ellie was a choice Joel made, and one that would undoubtedly come with consequences, as Joel never considered what Ellie wanted in the midst of his decision. Was it selfish of Joel to make that choice for Ellie? Maybe, but that's the remarkable nature of this story. All the themes, characterization, internalized conflicts that both Joel and Ellie go through in this game, all of it, can be wrapped up in 2 words.
You keep finding something to fight for. Now, I know that's not what you want to hear right now.
Swear to me. Swear to me that everything that you've said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
Okay.
The Last of Us makes me ponder what it means to be human in ways I have yet to experience again in a video game. What does it mean to be human? To love? To make mistakes? The awe of being alive? Or the thrill of discovering what it means to exist? The bittersweet part in all of this is that sometimes, we as a species will do selfish things for the people we love. We have the capacity to care about others in a way that drives us to do anything in our power to protect them. And the bittersweet part in all of this for Joel, he made a sacrifice. He sacrificed the many to save the few. Not because he's a hero or a villain, but because he's human. And it's that very principle of regaining his humanity that would eventually lead to his downfall. The bittersweetness in all of this is that in the world of The Last of Us, it's the act of losing your humanity that greatly increases your chance of survival, as Bill mentioned way back.
Somebody I had to look after. And in this world, that sort of shit's good for one thing: getting you killed. So you know what I did? I wisened the fuck up. And I realized it's gotta be just me.
Bill, it ain't like that. It's
bullshit. It is just like that.
But it's this desire to have something to live for again that drove Joel through the course of the game to see that Ellie safely got to the Fireflies, and then to rescue her from being the metaphorical key to saving humankind. And it's this very flaw in humanity that The Last of Us highlights that makes it one of the most powerful, beloved, and compelling single-player games ever created. And for me personally, one of my favorite games of all time. I just wanted to take a second to say thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comment section below, whether they be positive or negative. I look forward to reading your thoughts on The Last of Us and what impact it left on you as well. So as always, stay safe, thank you for your time, and I will see you next time.